Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. This week was patch week, so pretty interesting in my opinion, especially the logos on the structures is pretty cool. So feel free to drop by the DAL and come take a look. Of course, the Plex Vault came as well with the Plex changes, pretty controversial one. Lots of threads on Reddit to repeal that change. I don't think it's going to happen, and I also do think that people have been overreacting a little bit when it comes to the comparisons between what CCP has done and like mobile games. So a lot of the arguments are basically slippery slope arguments, where they're saying that this is a step towards pay to win, but I personally have enough faith in CCP that I don't think that they'll ever go down that path. So we are here for the market, of course. As always, we'll start with Plex, which is now in a different position because it's no longer 30 days playtime certificate. It is now named Plex itself. So we'll get started 105 like that, and we'll start with Plex right here in the middle. In the 10-15 minutes it took me to get ready, went up in price to 2.6 million, a little bit above that. So of course this is the new Plex, 500 times smaller than the previous Plex, but CCP did a really good job in my opinion, where they basically took the history and divided everything by 500 maybe. They also, let's take a look at that here. Million. Yeah, so they also divided the volumes by 500 to basically allow us to have a bit of a history when it comes to the Plex prices. And, well, we're breaking out. We're definitely at a 1-year high at this point, at 2.625 million for the sellers, 2.56 million for the buyers. And if we look in the perimeter trade hub or the Morrissey trade hub now, 2581. So a little bit below 2.6 million and a little bit above that in JITA itself. It's quite interesting. I did not expect this increase in price to materialize, but for now it does really look like the market is willing to pay a premium, and thus that the increased demand, because you can now buy Plex for just a couple million, and so you can have a much easier progression path, and it also, in my opinion, a much clearer path towards buying some of the cheap skins and things like that. As a result, the demand is increasing, and so is the price of Plex. So I actually feel pretty good about the fact that I didn't sell all my Plex just yet, but let's maybe also take a quick look at what this actually does. So if I go for the calculator right here, let's see, 2625, and then we've got 3 zeros behind that, and we have to do that times 500 to see what the equivalent would be. Yeah, more than 1.3 billion, so 1 billion 312 million pretty much would be the current price of the old Plex, which is definitely a very high price, much higher than before. And thus, as a result, now if you make that quick calculation, you have a little bit of an idea on what kind of a profit you're going to be making on the previous Plex that you bought, which may have been as low, I think, as like 900 million through the summer. So that is maybe one quick calculation that we'll do from time to time until we really get to grips with the new Plex prices. But 2.6 million, definitely above what we had before the Plex changes, and we can clearly see that on the chart here as well. A low price seems to be around 2 million. So if this summer we would see the other Aurum balances of below 1000 Aurum get converted as well, and we'd see an increase in supply, and the market could somehow reach 2 million again, I think that that would be a good place to buy at. Right now I would be looking to sell more Plex, because this is, I don't think this is a very sustainable increase in price. But who knows, of course, how much demand has increased because of the accessibility of the new Plex prices. We may yet see higher prices coming here. And of course, psychologically as well, 1.2 to 1.3 billion for Plex is considered a really crazy price, very high, especially for veterans, right? We've known Plex at 900 million, at 500 million, at 350 million. So those prices do feel like they are almost crazy to try and make for yourself or to pay for a plex, but 2.6 million is 2.5 to 2.6 million is definitely something that psychologically would mean or gives us the feeling that it's a lot more accessible and a lot cheaper. So while it's not, if you sell right now, you're probably selling at the best price you've ever sold your plex. So there we go. I'm probably going to unload a couple of them, not too many, but at 2.6 million I may try to sell a bit more and then see as we go higher and higher towards maybe 2.7 million, then we're definitely selling more of them, and then at some point of course we're gonna start to see a pullback, and then we'll have to try and find a possible good price to start moving into the new plex. But these are the changes, much smaller, much more incremental, and 2.6 million at the moment for a plex, which you need 500 of course, for a monthly subscription. So what has not changed is the multiple pilot training certificate. This could be a really good barometer as well for you to use if you don't want to constantly be doing the calculations on plex. These have gone up in tandem with plex themselves. They of course still have a very similar function to what plex does, or 500 plex does now, which is of course to add 30 days game time, although here it's only for a second character on your account. But we can once again see that we're at a 1-year high here, definitely higher than the previous peak with the Ascension expansion, and currently selling for 1,345,000,000. Buyers are at 1,235,000,000. Will the multiple pilot trade certificates replace plex as a store of value? I don't think so. The usage is much smaller, the market is much smaller as well, so I don't think that a lot of people are going to convert to this item, but it can just maybe be a good barometer or a good indicator of finding the relation between the old plex and the new plex prices. Next up, pilot body resculpt, 341 million for the sellers, 248 for the buyers. What is this one doing? Going back down a little bit, so a little bit of a pullback here, but still really high volumes as well. Maybe this has somehow become more accessible with the new plex changes, because this is definitely outside the norm here, and we don't see a huge movement in the price range on this one either. Sellers 340. No, that's around here. That's around correct on the 5-day moving average. So it's going to be interesting to see if this will find higher volumes, maybe because of better accessibility, which would also be an indicator of stronger demand for the new plex as well. Skill extractors next. I honestly think that skill extractors and skill injectors are going to become the new stores of value. Again, mirroring the plex chart quite closely, but to my surprise here, high point is 300 million. High point is going to be, yeah, it does bug out a little bit of course, 300 million for the sellers, 284 million for the buyers. So here the second peak is only now reaching the Ascension high, which is different from plex, which has clearly broken through that ceiling and is now at the 1-year high point. So skill extractors, 300 million for the sellers. Pretty expensive of course, which is normal when you look at the current price of plex. Skill injectors though, those are at a 1-year high. You also see that we are way past the Ascension peak on that one. Here in March we are already at a peak at 680, and now we actually reach 690 million, currently selling for 707 million, and the buyers are at 677. So I like this one because I do think that the addition of skill points makes it a more interesting item than just a plex. It's not only the real life transactional value that will create a store of value, but the addition of skill points as well, I think will make the skill injectors your next go-to item if you want a hedge against inflation. And at the moment, of course, the big component is that plex prices are going up, but demand may be up as well with the alpha clones and things like that. So at the moment, skill injectors are of course very high. I would not make a move on this. I would need to see a pullback in both plex and the skill injectors to jump in on this as trying to get a store of value. But if you're looking for that bigger and that longer term investment, I would definitely look at the skill injectors after those drop back a little bit, if they ever do, which hopefully they will. But this I think will become a new hot commodity that will take not all the business that the old plex took over. I mean, the new plex will still be used as a store of value, but I do think that it will gain in popularity and gain in importance when it comes to those investments that are meant to hedge against inflation. So skill injectors, 1 year high, 700 million, really pretty expensive. Oh, and this is also something I was going to say, because we see that the average price is 690, something like that, seller 707, buyer 677. It does mean that there is action on both sides here. It's not only the sellers that are dictating a price or the buyers that are able to crash the price. Nope, you've got some people that are willing to pay the 707 million, but you also have some people that make enough skill injectors that they're saying, you know what, I'm going to actually sell to the buyers, which is great, of course, if we ever do see that pullback, because it at least gives you a chance to pick up these skill injectors on the buyer side of things. And if supply outstrips demand by a lot, or demand would drop off, you could actually see the buyers be able to pull that price back down, and you personally be able to pick up some of these skill injectors on the way down, which is of course what we want as an investment. So the new plex, I think, will need a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months to digest all of this, to see how everything evolves, how much demand, which seems to be winning out at the moment, keeps on winning. And of course then the release of the extra plex from the small ore imbalances might actually form a bit of an opportunity to buy, because in my opinion this is a little bit too much, because I do think that there is increased supply as well from the ore stocks that have been converted. And the market, I feel, tends to overreact from time to time, and right now it's overreacting because of expected higher demand, because plex have become so cheap and accessible. And I think that we may see the exact opposite if the ore imbalances get announced as becoming free as well, the small ore imbalances. We may actually see the market crash down more than it should, which is of course what will create a possible buy opportunity, and which in my opinion here creates a bit of a sell opportunity. But as I've said, don't go crazy, don't sell everything right now. As long as we're going up, you know, try to maybe sell a little bit of your plex if you're actually making ISK on that, and if it's what you want to do, of course. That's my personal plan. All right, next up we're moving on to minerals at 1220. There we go. And let's take a look at those, not PI but minerals. We'll start with titanium, which is dropping off on the 5-day moving average, but you can also see that the daily moving average is trying to go back up. So when I was checking this, we had 484. It's still 484 in JITA, because the other two at 460 and 461 are actually in another station in the JITA system. But let's take 484 for the sellers, 447 for the buyers. Now the numbers are not good. 1.8 billion, 1.5 billion, 2 billion. These are huge volumes coming to the market, but we are in a decent range, close to 5 ISK. So we're actually trading close to this place right here, which is of course the reason why we're getting to see these massive volumes come into play. These are actually older orders, 83 days from a week ago, and they're actually slowly coming back into play at 490. So there is demand for titanium, but the supply on higher prices is of course going to keep us from breaking 5 ISK anytime soon. So we would need to see huge demand for that to actually happen. I think that the 5-day moving average here will correct a little bit because of the median daily prices, but so far I'm actually pretty happy with what titanium is doing. Despite the major increased supply, we've managed to crawl back a little bit, and we're slowly I think evolving back towards 5 ISK. Next up we've got pyrite. That is not good news, not what I expected at all. It moved sideways for almost 2 months, doing really well, trying to hold towards 6 ISK, but here now we're definitely going back down. 558 for the sellers, 528 for the buyers, and I'm still seeing 360 million, 300 million here, 50 million here, compared to just one buy order of 140. You have to go much lower towards 5 ISK in order to see bigger buy orders. So pyrite still under pressure, unfortunately, and has to give back a little bit of ground as well in the last few days, which honestly for high-sec miners is not great news. Next up we've got Mexilon. That one is holding strong. I'm really happy with what Mexilon is doing, managing to stay above 75 ISK. This is still your focus if you're mining in high sec. Try to find the ores that actually yield you some Exelon. 76 ISK for the sellers, 71 for the buyers. And here we do see a seller of 167 million, but the buyers are coming at 50 million, another 10 million here. So it's of course slowly edging down as well. It is under pressure because there is more supply than demand at the moment, but it's holding strong at a really good price, even compared to the Ascension expansion. And the reason is that Mexlon is a bottleneck in nullsec production. Their local mineral supplies basically don't have enough Mexalon to balance out everything else, which is probably also why we're seeing a pyrite dumping here. You see the volume increase, thus the drop in price, because at some point, you know, they're not going to keep purchasing more and more Mexalon. They're also going to dump some of their leftover minerals, and that can sometimes happen in pretty big stocks, causing prices to jump down. After that we've got Isogen, similar. You know, Isogen tried to come back a little bit while Pyrite was slowly edging down but managing to stay decently stable. Isogen was slowly creeping up towards 50 or maybe even a little bit above 50 ISK, but here again in the last 4 or 5 days we can see increased volumes and we can see decreased prices. So 49 ISK for the sellers, 47.63 for the buyers. Very small margin, but sellers like this 55 million are going to, and 44 million here are going to cause problems for Isogen, and as a result here again under pressure because of some selling. Next up we have Noxium. Ooh, this is really not good either. Let's take a quick look at these. Almost got to 400 ISK, maybe even above 400 ISK a couple of weeks ago. But now here, look at that massive volume. So that is really a lot of mineral dumping that's happening on the market. 357, 358 for the sellers, 333 for the buyers. This is definitely a major stock dump that happened here, trying to take advantage of prices close to 400 ISK and crashing the price back down. So this is one thing that we have to keep in mind when it comes to the mineral market. There are still major stocks out there. There are also still major supplies being created all the time, especially by the goons. They are mining up a storm and still doing so as efficiently as they can, and as a result from time to time we have to fear these major volume increases, decreased prices. You can see this as a buy opportunity. If you're planning to do a lot of manufacturing yourself, then this is the right time, you know, like the capital ship manufacturing that I've been making videos about. This would be probably the right time to pick up some cheap Noxium close to 335 ISK, something like that. But it is not really good for the miners, of course. After that we've got the nullsec ones. Here is Zydrine holding at 1000 ISK, which is not a great price for Zydrine. 1020 ISK for the sellers, 989 for the buyers. So here again we still see more supply, 3 million, 6 million, 2.5 million, much bigger volumes than the buy orders. So despite that, Zydrine is holding decently well. There is a very good reason for that. It's that it's mostly sellers in JITA that will dictate the price of Zydrine. But this is also, we can see here that the volumes are not that high, and what you don't want to see, of course, is a major dumping here, which could cause the price to go even lower. But I think that the chances here are much lower for that to happen, because Zydrine is not making a comeback. If it would crash down, we'd basically go to 1 year low at 900 ISK, which becomes almost a no-brain buy at that point. But I think it happened in Megasite, absolutely. This was even posted on Reddit that someone put a bullet through the Megasite market, which was doing really well, went up to like 1600 ISK right here, then slowly creeped down 1500, slowly lower and lower, reaching 1336. But then here someone pulled the trigger. You can again see the massive volumes being brought to the market and pushing Megasite down to 1150 ISK now is what the sell orders are coming in at, and the buyers are at 1100 ISK. So still a bit more expensive than Zydrine, but definitely a pretty good place to try and pick up some of your Megasite. Again, if you're planning to use it as an investment, you could try it. I mean, this is really a violent downswing, and it needs to come from nullsec, so there is a chance that prices will go back up after this. But again, keep in mind there are major supplies, there are major stocks, and who knows when the next dump is going to be triggered. Looks like last week was definitely dumping week. Here is the Megasite. So on titanium not so much, but on pyrite we can clearly see that it happened here as well. And then on isogen we clearly have higher volumes as well. So someone has been liquidating a lot of minerals right here. Oh, and I almost forgot, sometimes I forget Morphite because it is Tech 2 related, but that one is actually holding at 9,400 ISK. Not a great price, 9,300 in fact for the sellers, more sellers coming in here. And then 8,888 ISK for the buyers, which is below 9,000 ISK. Historically speaking, this would be a really good investment, but keep in mind that this is mined like any other mineral, except you do need some other stuff, I think. But at the moment oversupplied, and the question is, when will this change? Who knows, a big war could actually help with that, but at the moment I'm not really seeing any signs that that's going to happen. The only one sign would of course be the fact that we know that CCP is planning to change all outposts to faction citadels with the winter expansion. That's still a long way away, but I do want to give that information that that could cause and trigger quite a bit of conflict. So maybe people are still preparing, making plans, drawing everything up there, but next winter could be one full of conflict because of that change, because stations that were indestructible before can become destructible all of a sudden. That's one good reason. You could really do a purge of certain parts of space, but also because there might be a race to try and own as many of these faction citadels, which is of course going to be dependent on the owners of the outposts at the time of the conversion. So before that we might also see a war there. So I think that that's all pretty interesting, and it could be the reason why we're not seeing a lot of conflict at the moment, because it would be way too soon to pull the trigger on something like that. You would still have to hold all of those outposts for all the upcoming months towards the winter expansion. Nobody is going to volunteer for that, and I think that plans are being drawn out though, so we could be in for a pretty interesting winter, I think, when it comes to Nullsec politics because of the changes of the outposts to faction citadels. Moving on to some PI next, 22 minutes. Okay, don't want to drop that. Let's get started here. Construction blocks are slowly going back down after reaching pretty much a one-year high again, close to 15,000. Is currently selling for 13,100, and the buyers are at 12,000. I would pretty much put that, well, maybe a little bit above average, because construction blocks are not that difficult to produce. They're decently common as well. So average maybe 12,000 is something like that. Buyers are around there, but sellers still a little bit above average. Still, the momentum is clearly down after a very strong year so far for construction blocks, and a very strong summer as well. So with the Ascension expansion, we had a bit of a crash, but we made our way back up there, and now here we do have a bit of a pullback at the very end. Consumer electronics next, very similar situation, very strong summer here again. Ascension expansion happens, we go back down, but we climb back up here pretty violently as well in March, towards 16,000 ISK, again here in May, but it doesn't last here in at the tail end. We have to give back ground a little bit. 14,200 for the sellers, still very respectable price. 13,500 for the buyers, definitely still above average, but not at the one-year high that we had at the end here of April. Coolants next, a little bit different because it is probably related to fuels, but here in September we still had a very strong September, again the pullback with the Ascension expansion, but then an early increase in price to 16,000 ISK in February. We had to give back ground for a little bit here. This was coming together with very high fuel prices all of a sudden. I think February, March was very expensive to keep the facilities going. And here at the tail end we can actually see a little bit of a comeback for coolants towards 12,000 ISK, 12,800 for the sellers, 12,500 for first buyer, 11,700 for the next one. So I would say that the sellers are a little bit above average, not by much. I would put the average at 12,500. The buyers are probably a little bit below that, but we have a little bit of momentum to crawl back here. Higher volumes on higher prices should be more demands. A bit of buying happening, opportunistic buying, possibly in the coolant market, which is good, I think, for people that want to produce this kind of stuff. Gas planet is all you need, so you're getting a decent price for coolants at this point. Not the very best, of course. That was in February. Next up, enriched uranium. Very similar situation again here. Strong September, Ascension expansion, bit of a downfall. Coming back March, April, and now we have to give back ground, but still holding very strongly. 17,400 for the sellers, 16,600 for the buyers. Enriched uranium is definitely still way above average, a great one to try and produce and to sell if you have stocks lying around. Mechanical parts, that is an unusual one because it had a really weak summer. Here like 9,000 ISK or something like that, and then we had almost 8-9 months of straight up climbing towards a 1-year high in April, which brought us at more than 15,000 ISK, so almost a doubling of the price here. And here of course that doesn't go on forever, so we had to give back ground throughout March and April, May here, and it's still not stopping. I actually think that will be close to an average price, no, a little bit above average, because mechanical parts is also very easy to make. So let's say 11,000 is average, sellers are at 12,400, buyers are at 12,250, 11,800, so still a little bit of above average for mechanical parts, but also the best times are over. Oxygen here next. That one is not doing too well. I still think that this was an overreaction of the price reaching more than 500 ISK. Huge production, and it's just not being absorbed by the market. It's also of course a processed PI material. There's very little need to do that outside of fuel production, but it's also so easy to make that I don't think that there's reason to completely go crazy on oxygen. 433 for the sellers, 391 for the buyers, probably a little bit below average at the moment. Robotics next. That was one of the really strong ones that went up to 120,000 ISK in March. Here again, decently good summer. 110,000 ISK is actually really good. I would put the average for robotics normally at a little bit below 100,000 ISK, so around here and around here. Then of course again Ascension expansion with the dip back down, but look at that move up here. Incredible move up to more than 120,000 ISK. Again, doesn't last. We have to give back ground, and it gets worse and worse as we come into May here. So robotics selling for 108,000 ISK. It's definitely less than what we had in the last few weeks and months, but still a decently good price. Buyers 104,000 ISK, so they're still above 100,000 ISK, but that is probably going to change with 10,000 here, 11,000 here. Supply 46,000 right here. Supply is really coming in for the robotics. I do think we'll get back to average prices pretty soon, which I would put at just below 100,000 ISK. Rocket fuel next, still holding well above its average. I think that this is basically the new normal for rocket fuel. 13,500, something like that. 14,200 for the sellers, 12,000 for the buyers. Really wide margin, big supply here as well, 110,000 ISK. So maybe I should review that opinion. Rocket fuel is really a weird one. The chart isn't working that well. Median daily price, you can see, are constantly all over the place, and with 12,000 ISK on the buyer side of things, I think increased supply could put us back towards an average price in the upcoming weeks, maybe because we're seeing so many of the other ones be under pressure as well after a really strong period. Rocket fuel could actually normalize back towards the previous chart area. Self-harmonizing power cores next. Let's take a look at that one. Hesitating a bit. Okay, I think that this could be normal with both the refineries coming in winter and the well, no, there's really little need to buy stuff like this for the faction structures that are coming. So probably just some preparation. In the last few weeks we're actually pulling back a little bit. Self-harmonizing power core selling for 2.3 million. Bars are at 2.2 million. I'm still hoping for a summer dip here, so that we could actually pick up maybe some self-harmonizing power cores for less than 2 million, which would make for a great investment for the winter expansion. But will it happen? At the moment there is some volatility, so some people are already taking their positions in these PI related, structure related PI materials. Superconductors next, going back down even more as well, 11,800, 12,507 for the sellers, 12,000 or 11,500 I should say because of the first big buy order here. This is going to get I think filled in pretty damn quickly. Decent margin, I would say around average for superconductors, maybe a tiny bit below that, but I think we're basically at the average price here. Test cultures next, still languishing on at a decently low price point. It's up to you to decide whether or not you think this is a buy opportunity. I personally would like to try to see buy orders for less than 8,000 ISK, which is not happening, but 8,232 for the sellers, 8,150 for the buyers. Volume wise here though, 15,000, 18,000, yeah, there are enough buyers willing to pay 8,100 for the price not to drop too low. So maybe with a bit of patience we could see a dip with buy orders below 8,000 ISK, which I think would make for a good investment. Potentially, as we can see here, 15,000, doubling your price is potentially possible here, but I also don't want to be buying too much if it's more than 8,000 ISK here. So patience and waiting for the right opportunity to strike in test cultures, I think could be the right move. Wetware mainframes here, that one is still continuing to be under pressure a little bit. 2.3 million for the sellers, 2.2 for the buyers. Basically bring the wetware mainframes in line with the self-harmonizing power cores, which could mean that this could be the first one where a buy opportunity shows up. Why am I saying this? Because in my experience with the previous structure releases, wetware mainframes have actually become bottlenecks in the market and the production cycles. So this one was the hardest for me to buy up and to be ready for an upcoming structure. So this could become the right one if it can continue to go down, maybe below the self-harmonizing power cores. Buy orders close to 2 million, something like that would be absolutely awesome. Then that could be one that could become a really good investment towards the winter. So PI is in general going down a little bit. It's under pressure. I think it could be normal. Summer is approaching. Maybe we're seeing lower demand, a bit lower activity, things like that. So I would say throughout this summer, in the next months, and especially the summer, keep a close eye on the PI market. Maybe there could be some awesome investments to make there. Next up, Tech One ships, 30-10. Gotcha. Here that is, well, the Abaddon again working its way back up a little bit in price, just like in March here. That's quite surprising. Let's take a look at that here. 184 million for the sellers, 155 million for the buyers. Supply wise, there are still some Abaddons, but you can also see that they're all individual sell orders. Still, you know, slightly up in price. So the mineral crash of the Ascension expansion is being fought back a little bit here. Excuse me, in the battleship market for the Abaddons at least. So that is up significantly here. Average price, weirdly enough, can sometimes go up to 200 million. Maybe, as I've said, sorry, I have to blow my nose here for a second. There we go. Maybe this is some preparation for the Tech 3 rebalance. So at the moment, Tech 3 ships are taking over a lot of the jobs when it comes to nullsec doctrines that battleships should fill. And so it was stated again by CCP Fuzzy on a podcast, so none of this is official. All of it is subject to change. We could be completely wrong on this, but that one thing that they don't like about the Tech 3 ships is how it is taking over core roles of other ships. And the battleships are definitely out of the meta at the moment, so maybe CCP is looking to bring those back by hitting the Tech 3 ships in the places that allow them to actually replace these battleships as functional doctrines in nullsec. So here we go, Abaddon moving up all of a sudden. The Caracal slightly up, not by all that much, currently selling for still 9.8 million, less than 10 million for a Caracal is pretty cheap. 9.1 million for the buyers. I would say look out for really low prices, then the nullsec alliance is probably going to swoop in, buy up some Caracal fleets. They just tend to be something that you want to have, especially like your alpha clones. I think if you can get those in a major Caracal fleet, you actually have something that is really effective for the alpha clones even in Nosek battles. Governor next, still holding on at, trying to hold on at 25 million, not succeeding. 26 million for the sellers, 23.7 for the buyers. So the Governor we came back a little bit after the bottom here with the Ascension expansion, and which is also like close to a mineral bottom here, especially for the high-sec minerals, but it's still definitely not trading anywhere near the pre-Ascension prices. Here's the Hurricane, also under pressure a little bit. There's really not much to say in the Tech 1 market, unfortunately. Not a lot of fresh supply, not that much demand. 47 million for the sellers, 43 million for the buyers. It basically makes these Tech 1 ships very affordable. So if you want to go out there and have some fun, lose a couple of Tech 1 ships, this is the time to do so. But in Nosek there is much more of a focus on faction battleships, interceptors, things like that. And so unfortunately for the Tech 1 market, low volumes, low demands, and low prices as well with what's happening in the mineral market. Here's the Maelstrom, also trying to, look at that, trying to work its way back up here. Average price 190, that's definitely not bad. 185 million for the sellers, not that much supply here at the buyers at 141. But again, it's a much smaller market. We do have a bit of a volume increase here. Again, I'm still going to say that this could be speculation on battleships making a bit of a comeback in the meta. Megatron, not so much a volume increase, but again, the price here coming close to pre-Ascension prices, which is quite interesting. 171 for the sellers, 158 for the buyers. Next up, we've got the Prophecy. That one is actually dipping to a 1-year low. So 45.6 million, 46 million for the sellers, 40 million for the buyers, no demand whatsoever. So if you want to pick up some cheap Prophecies, or if an Nosek Alliance sees this and ever considers a Prophecy fleet, which I know Test Alliance used to fly when they were at war with the Goons, then take a look at that. Maybe you can pick up a small Prophecy fleet for a decently cheap at the moment. The chart certainly indicates a 1-year low, and that usually triggers volume increases. So right here, increasing the price. So it could happen here for the Prophecy, and I wouldn't blame you if you're looking to make a fleet of these. It's the time to buy. Scorpion next, that one is not validating my battleship prediction or theory here. Keep going down in price, close to 1-year low as well. Is it because of fresh supply? Not really. Couple coming in every day. 140 million for the sellers, 130 for the buyers. It's just a lack of demand here. There's no one buying Scorpions. So here again, if you're looking to maybe, well, you can maybe buy a dozen Scorpions. It's really not gonna do all that much. Yeah, unfortunately, just no supply, no demand, no interest in Tech 1 ships, which is causing these really low prices for the Scorpion. And even if you want to take advantage of it, you can't buy that many of them. Next up here we have the Vexor, which is holding, but is it above or below 10 million? 10.2 million for the sellers, 9.3 for the buyers, so a bit better than the Caracal, but not by much. Definitely much cheaper than before November with the Ascension expansion here. So the Tech 1 market, unfortunately, the name of the game is that it's not in the meta at the moment, and there's just really very low demand when it comes to these ships. Very difficult to make money in any type of industry on Tech 1 ships at the moment, at least the sub-capitals. Next up we have Tech 2 ships at 38.25. Okay, let's get started here. Take a look if we can spot some opportunities. So here the Ares mid-April went down to 20.75 million on average, so you probably could have bought Ares for less than 20 million. And here we had a bit of a jump up to 24 million, but unfortunately it's a little bit too timid. We would like to see 25, 26 million come into play. Didn't happen, unfortunately. Now it's waiting for the right buy opportunity. 20.5 million, it's up to you to decide whether or not this is the right time. Another 17 of them, and we do once again have buy orders below 20 million, which I think is a good price to try and pick up some of these if you're looking to make Iskandar. Next up here we got the Claw. So here that was close to 20 million, and here we have sell opportunity 25 million. Again, not as high as we would like to see it, but at least a slight opportunity to make some money on the Claw did just happen. Next up here we get the Crow. This is definitely not what we want to see. Even if we pull the chart back from October, you can see basically the lowering of the volatility. The bottom keeps being the same one to trigger here. So 22.8, 22.6, 22.8. If we reach that price on the chart, you may want to look at trying to pick up some buy orders because it is a trigger for volatility, but this is decreasing volatility, and here we are not reaching that bottom anymore. So the Crow is basically in the wrong place to do anything on it. 26 million for the sellers, 22.5 for the buyers. Aries next. That was not bad, but here in March, buy opportunity below 40 million. Currently selling for 52 million. Buyers are at 47.2 million. So this is a very unusual one. We would like to see more volatility in this, but the Aries dropped below its average price by quite a bit for several months on end. So this was a great month to try and pick up some cheap Aries ships. And here now in May we come back, and this would be a great sell opportunity. So the Tech 2 market is alive, but the fast-paced volatility isn't showing up all that much anymore. We would need again some Gnostic action for that to actually happen. So at the moment, I would say if you want to prep for winter, then try to spot those buy opportunities, try to spot those low points where you can try to pick up some cheap ships, and then have the patience to wait for Gnostic activity, for a war, and hope for that big spike, which did happen like right here. Look at that, that's not bad. I still remember from, is it 2 years ago, where we had a major April war, at the World War B, of course, which gave you this like, I don't know, was 3-4 times the price for interceptors all of a sudden, because it's the only thing that goons were flying there. That was an incredible opportunity as well. So you need that patience at the moment. I do think we're heading towards the summer, so it's very unlikely that anything major is going to trigger that. It could still happen, but at the moment, when it comes to the Tech 2 market in general, Flycatcher a bit too high. I wouldn't be looking to buy for that. But yeah, I would say personally, I would look to build up some stocks of the very popular ships, which would be interceptors, stealth bombers, things like that. And try and pick those up at those really low price. So the Heretic here again, in between the high points at 60 million, low point 45 million, currently selling for 51 million. Buyers are at 47 million in between those 2 points, so I would not try to purchase those, but wait for the chart to look like this one, to be well below 50 million. That's when you could try to pick up some of these ships. Here's the Hound next. Again, this was great, but here now less volatility, not as high, an increase in price here up to 27 million, still not bad, but look for prices below 20 million on the chart. 19.2 million for the buyers could be pretty interesting, although I have seen Hounds dip even lower than that, so maybe you want to wait for another 45 of them. Then you have buy orders below 19 million. That basically becomes a no-brainer. Malediction next here. That was not too bad, right? Some purchasing abilities close to 23 million, and then here prices went up substantially, 30 million. Still selling for 25.5 million. Buyers are at 22.7 million. And here we are going down substantially with some momentum, so hopefully we can keep this going. Again, go back towards 22 million, have buy orders well below that, and just find another buy opportunity. This was a slight sell opportunity right here in the Manticore, which I don't like that much because it has this constant premium on the other stealth bombers. The Hound is very recognizable, go well below 20 million. 18, 19 million for the buy orders. You're doing a good deal. For the Malediction, it's often for the Manticore, it's often a bit more tricky to predict those trigger points here. 23.4, then here we get 23, here we went as low as 22.5. It's a bit more of a tricky one, but it can sometimes be a really good investment. The Nemesis next. I like where this is heading here. Look at that, 20 million on average, 20.2 million for the sellers, no buyers whatsoever. This is the right time to try and pick up some cheap Nemesises. You could try 16, 17.5, 18 million, and if you could do that here, the Nemesis is in a really good spot to prepare for that eventual Gnostic war. It's still a stealth bomber, it's flown quite a lot, it's also quite iconic. In my opinion, it's often flown or seen in the trailers, so it is still a pretty popular one, I think, especially with newer players that are getting into stealth bomber fleets. So there yeah, look at that one. Nemesis, no demand whatsoever. This could be the right time to try and pick up a few cheap ships like this one. Here's the Purifier, actually at a high point, but also dropping back. So here again, buy opportunities were possible at probably 21 million, something like that. Currently selling for 24, but we did reach an average price of 26.4 million. So there is a little bit of money to be made, but it's not as good as a couple of months ago. And here's the Saber. Here, look, this is what we want to see, of course. Look at that. 51 million up to 67 million. Here again 67 million, but in the meantime dropping down to 51.8. So what we don't like to see is this decrease and this constant not really reaching a good bottom of less than 50 million, which means that for the Saber we, in my opinion, have to wait for a couple more of these buy orders to get filled eventually for a real buy opportunity. So the Tech 2 market, yeah, not doing all that great. I'm seeing a great buy opportunity in the Nemesis, but that's pretty much it this week. And I would say personally go into prep mode, but have the patience for a Nosec war when it comes to your Tech 2 investments at the moment. Next up, Tech 3 ships, 4550. Okay. Let's start with the destroyers, which were finally showing a little bit of market volatility. So the Confessor last week, we had a bit of a sell opportunity there, dropped back down to 33 million for the sellers, 30 for the buyers. But it's good to see that this market is alive at least a little bit now. Supply wise, 173.96. It's still a lot, but at least it's not as much as what we had during this February, March period here, when they were just all selling for 29, 30, 28 million. There were hundreds of them on every sell order. So it's a bit better. It's still oversupplied, but at least from time to time you have a bit of volatility and a slight opportunity to unload what stocks you bought during this year low period here. Hecate next, yeah, starting to see a little bit of volatility, some increased volumes here all of a sudden as well. Sellers 35 million, buyers 31.4 million. Supply wise though, almost full front page, 113, 95, 86, 40. It's still oversupplied, but again, as I've said, at least we're recovering a little bit from those huge volumes that we saw here. The Jackdaw next, 33 million seems to be the new bottom here. 30 million for the buyers, 33 million for the sellers, but 67, 148, 68. It's still a lot for the market to absorb. We'll need a bit more patience, but at least the evolution is in the right direction, I would say. Here's the Svepel market, also buyers 31.5, sellers 33 million with 27, 105, 218, 89, 47. So it's still a lot of ships. Be patient when it comes to the tactical destroyer market, but at least there is some movement there. And who knows, maybe a nerf to the Tech 3 cruisers could actually bring those guys back a little bit more as well. Here is the first cruiser, the Legion. This is not good, of course. The market, I think, is expecting a nerfing when it comes to the rebalance of these ships. And so the Legion at the 1 year low is still selling for 121, buyers 114. Lack of demand is right there. So if you do want to take that gamble, I think it's a big gamble, but if you do want to take a gamble, it's right now on the Tech 3 cruisers. Here's the Loki next, still dropping off. This is crazy, right? Trading at a 1 year low, previous 1 year low 120. We're trading and trying to go up a little bit from a low price point, and then we're still dropping even lower. Here's the Loki selling for less than 110 million and still 199 and 96 being dumped just a couple of days ago. Buyers are going to edge towards less than 100 million for a Tech 3 cruiser hull, which is really, I think, unseen. Here's the Proteus then, very similar, still going even lower. Sellers 109, 110, buyers 116. Sellers 116, buyers 110 million. Again, 1 year low price. And here's the Tengu doing the exact same thing on higher volumes. This is absolutely mind-blowing what's happening here. Here's the Tengu, was already at a 1 year low, struggling to stay above 120 million, and then we still see more volumes coming in, currently selling for 119 million, buyers are at 109. Yep, in the last 24 hours, still more than a front page. 16, 12, 39, 168, 27, another 25, another 20, another 23. So people are just getting rid of tech tree ships as they can. It's a major gamble if you would pick these up yourself. What I do have is one of each hull, so that we could try and play around a little bit with the new with the changes after they come out. Who knows, it could be interesting for some other stuff. I may buy a couple more just to have them, but you know, to take that major gamble and pour billions of ISK into the tech tree cruiser market is not something that I'm personally willing to do. But if you look at these charts, of course, it is the time to make your move if you're planning to do it. And then finally, we have the extra products, 50-30. I just want to touch on a couple of PvE ships. So we're going to check. Let's start with, what did I write? Oh, the Rattlesnake. Just a little bit out of personal interest, because I am planning to replace my Dominics and other battleships in my 3 trade hubs. Some of you guys probably know that I'm working on getting Orcas in all of our, not trade hubs, but all of our bases of operations, so that I'm ready to mine in any place. I want to do the same with the mission ship, and I think I'm going to go for rattlesnakes everywhere. And this is good news, rattlesnakes are extremely cheap at the moment. Look at that, 350 million for the sellers, 322 for the buyers. These are great PvE ships. I do know that the Goons just lost a couple dozen to the Blood Raider shipyard. Is it Goons? Someone at least lost a couple dozen to the Blood Raider shipyard. But it's at a 1-year low price, very cheap at the moment. So this is a great time for me to actually execute that plan. I'm finishing up my Orca. I'm also building a second one for my Yona operation. What I'm planning to do there then is sell my other mining ships, because I still have several mining barges there, and then upgrade my, I think it's Dominixes that I usually have for missions, to rattlesnakes. And it's definitely a great time if you ever wanted a rattlesnake, because it is an incredible PvE ship. Because it has that combination, in my opinion, that winning combination of, whoops, contracts. A contract has just been assigned to me. Okay, thank you very much. It has that winning combination of having both launchers and incredible drone power with 275% bonus sentry and heavy drones. You can only deploy 2, I think, but this is an incredible PvE ship, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to touch on, I think, 3 of the more popular ones, which is Rattlesnake, the Ishtar. Let's take a quick look at, oops, not Ishtar, but Ishtar. Let's take a look at that one. Here's the Ishtar chart. Okay, mid-range at the moment at around 200 million, 191 million for the sellers, 179 million for the buyers. My favorite exploration ship for combat sites, 4 out of 10, things like that, with sentry drones. It just blows right through those like crazy, very easy as well. You know, it takes less micromanaging, less control. You don't have to worry too much about movement. You don't have to worry about several weapon systems. You just, you know, deploy your sentry drones, 1 on each smaller targets, group them up for cruisers, blow through everything, and finish those sites with no problem. So this one, about average, definitely decently affordable as well. I know that the cheap version of that, which is the Vexor Navy issue, let's take a look if we can find that one. Vexor Navy issue, ooh, really cheap as well, 1-year low at 59 million, 62.7 for the sellers, 59.5 for the buyers, definitely at the low point as well. It's not only a really good one because, if I'm not mistaken, Alpha clones can fly this. It's basically what you want to grab before the Ishtar. It's like your gateway. It's Vexor Navy issue, then get into an Ishtar. It's going to do the job as well in exploration, maybe a little bit less efficiently, but still a really great ship. And it is a very popular Nautics raiding ship as well. So this one also very cheap, very affordable at the moment, and an incredible PvE ship. So if you like me want to basically see this as a bit of a preparation time, and you're looking for a couple of PvE ships to buy, take a look at this Vexor Navy issue as well. And of course the Gila is actually objectively, I would say better than the Ishtar for the exploration, although I prefer the Ishtar because it's so easy to use. It's only one weapon system and it's really absolutely amazing for that. The Gila is more powerful, it has better tank and it will clear those sites more quickly because it once again has that winning combination of missile launchers and drone damage, which is really great. And this one is also at a pretty low price range at the moment. 200 million for the sellers, 188 million for the buyers. You can definitely pick up a Gila for less than 200 million at the moment. So this is really good. I wanted to try it a little bit differently. I just had a personal interest for the rattlesnake, but here are a couple of PvE ships that you might be interested into buying, maybe for preparation, maybe for usage yourself, but all of these seem to be pretty inexpensive at the moment. So rattlesnake, Vixor Navy issue and Gila. The Ishtar, it's mid-range at the moment, still decently doable, I think, and it is my personal favorite, so I just included that one in the list as well. But that's going to be it for this EVE talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.